Here, I'll let you do the honors. We gotta grind that thing a little bit.
No, it's got rust on it, and it just takes.
Digging along a hillside right here. It's all shale. This is kind of like Colorado technique. So what I have to do is I have to dig a place for me to dig from, and once I have enough of a place to work from, because it's fairly steep, the camera doesn't do it justice, but maybe this will. Yeah, it drops off real fast. But once I've got myself a little bit of stuff to work from, then I go back and dig the road. So, kind of a two-step process. Well, so far so good. This is the one that had a bit of piston slap because I think it had the ported cylinder on it, stock muffler, and obviously the bottom end hasn't come apart yet. It's got a couple of good heat cycles on it. This one right here is the one with a fresh top in. Sounds like it. You know, I think it's running really good, that one. But if this one gets through this torture test without fragging the piston, I think it's going to get a new piston. You know, I think it will have earned one. Okay, a little bit of an update and review. I posted the 2 junk pile builds I did before. I'm not sure I posted the 3rd. Now, this one here is really kind of digging at the bottom of the junk pile barrel. I had a cylinder that actually the piston and the bore were pretty good, but it had been rolled on and broke some fins, bent some fins, so I just sort of filed it back with a file. And the fly side case half was off a relatively new saw. And what had happened with it, for some reason, the inside diameter of the PTO side case half was opened up. But the bearing was fine. So I just pulled off the other case half and then heated up this one and slipped it right on. So it was pure heat differential because the bearings were both fine. There's nothing wrong with the bearings, so I didn't have to pull them off the crankshaft. So that's what I did. It's got a parts carb on it. I don't know if it runs yet. We haven't tried to fire it up. And a little bit screwed up mount, a little bit bent up handle. But basically, this is a true junk pile, and it's got the worst of the handles. It's the one I wanted to be using today, you know, for milling, because I wanted to see if I could kill it. Well, since I didn't have all the bits and pieces, I have to go to eBay to get things like an exhaust gasket and a few other little bits and pieces. I needed to get muffler bolts, so I ordered them. Instead of ordering from Husky, I just went to bulk and got some standard. They work just fine. But so what's today? Oh, I had to do a modification. Yeah. That cheesy piece of plastic just snapped right off. That thing slapped me right in the side of the head and it hurt. That steel thing, it's kind of a spring. So, self-tapper, fixed it. This is that Oregon branded helmet that I gotten from Tractor Supply. I actually like it, other than the fact that it's falling apart on me. There's some bones. But this is the saw I was using for milling. Got through about 4 planks. And there are a couple of things about this setup that need to be modified. So before I go back out there, that's what I'm going to do. Number one, it really needs a muffler mod. I'm not going to do that today. But what I will do is get rid of that screen and maybe punch a hole or two in the top of the muffler to see if I can get the gases out a little bit better, get the heat out. You know what I've been doing is letting it run for, 30 seconds or so, then take a pause, and then as if I was cutting through logs versus milling. And one thing I can tell you also is a skip chain does not work well. Yeah. So what I'm going to try to do is see if I can put a file to this chain and see if I can make it actually be a little bit more aggressive. This is the cylinder that I thought had been modified. I not thought, it was modified. And it had a piston in there that rattled like crazy but didn't look bad. So I put it back together that way. And sure enough, it rattles. But it survives. So far it's surviving. It had a rough day yesterday. So here's the deal. I'm going to do a little bit with the muffler today. See if I can make it run just a little cooler. Try to make this chain where it actually does something other than make dust. And then run this darn thing. And if it survives another couple of days, if I get through my milling job with it, I think it's earned a piston. It'll get a new piston. But yeah, this junk pile right here is actually working pretty good. This was the second, I believe. Yeah, this was the second junk pile build I did, where I had to drill out and put a larger screw in for the muffler mount, just like I have to do on the other one over there. So let me commence, get to work. All right, we're going to pick up where we left off last night. And it's a hot day. So any of those issues related to hot start would show up today. Now, what I've been doing is instead of just doing one big pull right all the way through the wood, I've been going for like, 20, 30 seconds and stopping and letting it cool for just a little bit, as if I was blocking versus just milling. Either way, it's still hard work. It's not easy for the saw. I just loaded it up with fuel and bar oil, and I tried a little bit different filing on that chain because it just simply isn't biting. I'm not getting enough resistance on there to matter, so it's a skip chain. It's Husqvarna brand, and I'm not a fan of skip even for this. But one of the interesting characteristics is the top plate angle was a little more square, so it should be better for cross cutting. I think it was designed for that. And but the thing is, if the top plate gets a little dull, you need all of that top plate to do its job for it to cut cleanly. So I put a couple of steel file minutes on it, and we will see if we have a chain. It's a hot day. It's actually 86 degrees right now, 86. So I'm going to see if I can fire things off, and I'll just do one cut video here. Got quite a curve I've cut into those things. What these are purlons for a shed we're building, and I figure if I can mill them up out of this pine, it's on the inside, so I'm not worried about the weather characteristics. I don't know, I get a chance to run the saw and save some money at the same time.
So I was reading online, and they said red pine is actually ideal for doing poles and stuff. So we could actually do this. You just have to treat it so the bugs don't eat it. Nice, right?
Here, hand me that one.
I'll go down and grab my saw battery. I'll be right back. Is there anything I can bring you?
Something to drink. All right, now we got some time on them. They're good and hot, and it's a hot day. I want to do a hot restart to see whether or not they have problems with vapor lock, and my hunch is they don't. But to review, this is the junk pile build number 1, where basically I put a bearing in one of the bottom ends in a reasonably low hour OEM top end stock piston with a 12 thousandths gasket, and the muffler that was modded by somebody who I think did a very nice job. That saw is definitely a snappy saw. That's junk pile number 2, and it's not quite as snappy, but it has the decked and ported cylinder. At least it was. I guess that means it still is. Kind of a higher hour piston, kind of came with a set. And it has the OEM gasket because it was decked. I can't put the 12 thousandths on it, but it's stock muffler. And that's really it. Both of them have dirty air filters, which will be rectified, I hope, by the end of the day. I have 2 coming from Duke's, and as soon as I get those 2 air filters, they're going right on this saw, or these 2 saws. So that one's fast on the throttle response, feels very lively. That one just feels like a stock 572, which is not bad. It's also pretty lively, but as compared, it doesn't have the snap and the energy that this one has. That's an observation. And yeah, it rattles. That piston rattles. In my junk pile 2 video, I speculated as to why. And I'm debating, do I pull it apart and put a new piston in it and see if it quiets it down somewhat. But to this point in time, it doesn't seem like there's any, ill effects because of the rattle. It just makes noise. It hasn't gotten worse. And to the point of the 2 videos, I was able to get those 2 bottom ends obviously to a running state. And on that one there, had there been a systemic issue, it would have shown by now. And the other thing is that muffler repair I did, where I drilled and put a larger muffler screw, seems like it's holding up just fine. Thank you very much. It's got about 6 tanks through it, milling. So now they've had a little bit of time to heat soak. Let's see if they restart hot. That'll be another thing. Junk pile build number 2. All right, let's see if I can get this one to start. That one's out of gas, so I'm a little surprised it started at all. So much for the hot start issues. They both run just fine, but I better put some gas in. I mean, it's empty, so it started on vapors. One more thing. What I did on that chain, taking the raker down, that helped, but it's still not aggressive enough. It really isn't. It's not biting hard. So I think what I'm going to do before I go after the next set of logs is see if I can get in there and take the raker down a little bit more. And the other thing is, if you look at those teeth, look at the way it came stock, the top plate angles is more square than what you're used to seeing. And usually that's a good thing for cut and cross grain. But there's good news and bad news. The good news is, yep, it's supposed to work better cross grain cuts. The bad news is you got to have all of that top plate sharp. You know, otherwise you get what I got. So, all right, I think that's it for video. Get back to work. Maybe I'll talk about it a little bit later. But as far as the two junk piles build saws are, I think they're both useful. Those bottom ends came out just fine. You know, like I said, if there was anything that was going to happen to the bearings because of a, you know, close to failure situation, it would have happened by now on both these saws. So, tough saws, no dealers, you know, complete rebuilds, or at least down to bones, back up again with no common service tool. That's the point. Yeah, not bad for a junk pile, huh? And I think my chain filing worked a lot better this time. I dropped the rakers to about 32 thousandths. And and didn't do anything to the top plate, just rakers. Cut a lot easier. So anyway, it's really hot out. I'm just gonna keep going. There's no sense in videoing any more of this. And maybe this evening I'll put together a video and get back to the house. Beautiful day. Hot as hell. Hay is drying like crazy. And you know something? I don't care. I don't have to deal with it anymore. But all my fields that people are doing are down and drying, and it's a great hay week.